Good afternoon, um, followers of my YouTube channel and my 80s, 90s Canadian music group. I have a very special guest who happens to be a good friend of mine now, Mr. Douglas John Cameron. For those of you who don't know, he had a very big hit in Canada in the mid 80s with an album and song called Mona with the Children, which I have on tape cassette.
There it
Beat
is.
that. Beat
There it
that.
is. Who's
There
that
it
young
is.
guy?
Who's that superstar there?
Who's that young guy in the hat?
Yeah. This song made you a huge star, didn't it? You always tell me that anyway.
Uh, well, I mean, I don't know that it made me a huge star, but it was a song that was really well known, certainly across Canada.
Yeah.
And as a result, I was pretty well known at the time across Canada. The song itself, because of the video, was
Yeah.
everywhere. It was everywhere, and so in Canada, it was a top 20 hit. In Toronto, it was a top 10 hit,
Hmm.
which meant it got a lot of airplay, a ton of airplay.
It did. I remember it very vividly.
Yeah, radio and on Much Music, and
Hmm.
CBC had a video show. I forget what it was called now.
Video hits with Samantha Taylor.
That's right, video hits with Samantha Taylor. And so at the time, it was everywhere, and it was great. My own, my own sort of personal career didn't go much beyond that in terms of the pop music thing, and but the experience that I had was quite remarkable, and even today, I'll meet people who are maybe just a little bit younger than me, and they will remember that song from when they were in high school, or something like that. And I think it has had real reverberations
Hmm.
down. I mean, even in when we met, I think we must have met at a Whiskey Jack concert or something around that.
Yeah, it was in. You had been kind
Was
of
in
just guesting with them at the time. You weren't really in the band permanently, and I
was
think it
in
was in Mississauga.
well, oh, Mississauga. Okay, I was going to say Oakville, but I think it was, yeah, no. And I was just sort of sitting in with
Yeah.
Whiskey, and we met, and you know, I think you're a little bit younger than me, and you knew the song, and you knew about me, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Duncan was amazed I knew the song.
Well, Duncan, yeah, Duncan, who is my band leader and partner in Whiskey
Yeah.
Jack. Um, yeah, I mean, he's a bit older than me, so he was not aware. I
Right.
mean, he was a little bit aware of it, but it wasn't as big a deal
Right.
for him.
So, I want to go back a little bit and kind of, if you wouldn't mind giving us a brief, like, how did you get started in music, like playing an instrument? Like, what was it that hit you where you said, I got to do more than just listen to music. I want to learn to play an instrument or.
Well, when I was 4, my mother insisted that I take piano lessons.
Hmm.
And so I didn't really have a choice.
Right.
I was plunked down in front of the piano, and I went every week to see my piano teacher, and I learned to play piano. And it wasn't the most enjoyable experience.
Right.
But I had a teacher who really insisted on learning the basics, scales, chords,
Right.
theory, and as a result, even as a little kid, I had a really good grounding in musical theory
Hmm.
and in practical music. And I was singing at school and taking piano lessons. And when I was 6, my dad gave my brother and I a ukulele and a book, Mel Bay book, Learn to Play Ukulele in 5 Minutes.
Really.
And 5 minutes later, we could play ukulele.
Wow.
And then when I was 9, my father gave me a guitar because I'd gotten a little bit older, and I was playing ukulele, I was playing piano. He got me a guitar, and that was really, for me. I mean, I realized when I was taking piano lessons that I enjoyed music and that I
Hmm.
was kind of good at it. And then when I got the guitar, it was like this was what I really wanted to do. And so all through my childhood and youth, I took piano lessons right up until I was about 17. but I was also playing guitar, trying to learn guitar. And somewhere in there, and I was probably under the age of 6, I saw somebody on TV playing a guitar. And it might have been Elvis Presley. I don't know who it was because I was just a little kid, but late at night after the hockey game on a Saturday night or something, or on Sunday night on Ed Sullivan, someone was playing a guitar and singing. And I remember thinking, oh, that's what I like to do. So as I got older, being a teenager, I started to play guitar, and that led to playing in bands. That led to playing more instruments. Oh, there's Lily in the background.
Hello.
Lily's working hard, packing up for our renovation.
Okay.
No, I started playing in bands. I started to learn to play lots of different instruments. I played bass, played a bit of drums. I mostly played acoustic rhythm guitar. I was never that great an electric guitar player. And I began to write songs. I began writing songs when I was 9, and they weren't very good songs, but that was something I consistently did all through my childhood and my youth, to the point where when I was in my early 20s and I started playing in bands in Toronto, I started writing songs for those bands, and then it just kind of went from there. By the time right around 1979, I was playing in a band called the CDs in Toronto with my friend Curtis Dreger. And Curtis was a prolific songwriter. And he'd show up at the rehearsals with 2 or 3 songs that he'd written that week for us to learn. And I got jealous. And I said, if you can write a song, I can write a song. So I'd go off and write 3 songs and bring them back. And so we kind of propelled each other, and we wrote a lot of songs for the CDs. And it was just after that I did Mona with the Children. And by then I was writing songs all the time. It was sort of what I did, and that sort of culminated in Mona with the Children and that recording.
So when was it? Would you have gotten discovered to get you signed through a label to record that album?
Well, it was kind of weird because I had all the while that I was playing in bands and writing songs, I was also working at different things, and I had studied piano tuning at George Brown College, and I got a job out west in Banff. Tuning pianos at the Banff Center one winter. I forgot which winter it was. And it would have been around 1974, or no, would have been in the early 80s. I can't remember now. So long ago. Anyway, while I was there, I realized I wasn't that great a piano tuner, and that what I really wanted to do was try to be a pop singer. And so I came back to Ontario for a year and made demos at a little recording studio where I lived in Peterborough, just a little 4-track tape recorder, and I made a lot of demos. And then I came into Toronto and was fortunate enough to meet a producer who helped me make some demos in a big studio. And then we shopped those around to record companies to try to get a record deal, and no one would give me a record deal. Everyone rejected all my tunes. And the whole story of Mona with the Children was I wrote Mona with the Children, and a group of people at the time wanted to make a video out of it to tell the story of this young woman in Iran. And there was quite a bit of press about making the video. There was no album. They were just going to make this single and put it out and try to get the video on TV. And the day we were shooting the video, the first day, Bernie Finkelstein from True North Records read it in the newspaper, called up and said, I want to put out this single and this video. But there has to be an artist and there has to be an album. And so I had all these tunes recorded, and they became the album. And Bernie had rejected me earlier as an artist, but the song "Mona with the Children" propelled it. I mean, I think what was really important to people in the business in those days was that something be marketable.
Right.
And I think my stuff as a solo artist wasn't quite hitting the mark. But with Mona with the Children, the story, the video, everything made it, you know. So I had an album, and I was not signed to an artist deal. I was signed to a lease deal,
Okay.
which meant they got the rights to sell that one album,
Mm.
and they did, and it made it. I would say Bernie was incredibly important in making that song a hit and making that allowing for that to happen. It was
Right.
his label and his people and all of that stuff. When we came back to Bernie with to try to do a second album, he didn't want to do a second album with me.
Okay.
So I tried for a couple of years after that, recording more songs. I even made a couple more videos, and it just didn't go anywhere. So
Right.
my career had gone, you know, up like that for about 6 months, and then it went like that. And it took about 2 years, 3 years before I kind of said, you know, this is too much. It's not going to work. I gave it a shot. I had this great experience with Mona with the Children,
Right.
and now I'm going to have to do something else. I was already in my 30s, and I'd yet to make any kind of living as a musician,
Right.
a real living, and so I figured I'd have to do something else. Um, I know you want to know what it is that I tried to do.
Yeah, I do. Well, I read some of your background. There's not a lot on you on Wikipedia, but I saw you did some stuff on Treehouse TV.
Well, so what happened was
Hmm.
I decided to go to university.
Okay.
When my pop music career tanked, I went to university and studied music. I studied singing
Oh,
at,
okay.
at York University, and I had it in my mind that I'd become a teacher because a
Okay.
teacher's there's a profession. It's an honorable profession, and
Sure
I
is.
could
Yeah.
make a decent living and have a pension and all that stuff. So I went to university. I did pretty good at university, and I loved. I was doing operatic singing, and I loved the training that I got. It was really great.
Right.
And then I couldn't get into teachers college. There was some dark, weird thing in my past that stopped me from getting into teachers college. I don't know what it was, something academic. I had done something horrible at,
Okay.
at university in the past. And so for some reason, I couldn't get into,
Right.
I mean, when I say I'd done something horrible, I'd failed a course or something. And as a result of that, couldn't get into teachers college. So I didn't know what to do. I sort of kicked around for a few years after I got out of York.
Hmm.
And then I had an opportunity to go to work writing music for TV shows. And initially I worked for a company called Lens Entertainment, and I worked in the office. I
Okay.
ran the office, and I knew a little bit about computers, and computers had just started happening.
Right.
This would be around early 90s.
Hmm.
And people were just starting to have computers. I had gotten a computer. I knew how to do typing and stuff like that. So I
Hmm.
began to run the office. Gradually, I started writing music for the company. And then I got a gig. I got a job writing music for a TV show called Ants in Your Pants on Treehouse TV.
Okay. Yeah.
And Treehouse TV was going on the air, I think it was 1995.
Hmm.
They were owned by YTV, and they were
Right.
going to be a preschool channel.
Okay.
And I had done some kids music when I was at York. I'd recorded an album of kids music with Ken Whiteley, and I used to do little kids concerts around Richmond Hill where I lived, and songwriting workshops and things like that. And I had this album, and because of that album, the people at Treehouse said, "Oh, we want you to do the music for this show, Ants in Your Pants," which was a video show for preschool kids.
Right.
And it was late August of that year. They were going on the air November 1st.
Hmm.
I had to write 20 songs in 2 weeks,
Wow.
and 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 then record them. I wasn't the singer on all the songs. I had to find other singers to be on some of the songs.
Hmm.
They were shooting a video a day of these songs, so that when they went on the air, they had, I forget, well, they had 20 songs that I had written and
Hmm.
co-written with other people. And then they had a bunch of songs that they acquired, and they created this video show. And then, and this was the kicker. So I wrote all these songs. I wrote the theme song, "Ants in Your Pants." I wrote all these
Hmm.
crazy kid songs, um, in a frenzy because it had to be done so quickly. Then it went on the air, and it was on the air 4 times a day,
Wow.
7 days a week, because Treehouse didn't have a lot of programming, and so they
Right.
played it constantly. And by December of that year, everywhere I went, people knew "Ants in Your Pants."
Wow.
And I, where I'd go and do a kids concert before, and there'd be 20 people, I'd go and there'd be 300,
Wow.
and they'd know all the songs. And if I didn't wear the hat that I'd worn in the video, they'd get upset at me and say, "Where's your hat?" And I thought, what's going on here? Like, what has happened? And it became clear that the power of television. And so I realized and I realized at the time that I had written another hit song, and that was called "Ants in Your Pants." And
Right.
it was by virtue of the fact that everywhere I went in Canada, people knew "Ants in Your Pants."
Now,
And I
before you
remember,
did that, did they know who you were before?
no, they didn't know who I was. A few people in Richmond Hill, where I lived,
Yeah.
sort of knew that I sang a bit. But
Yeah.
suddenly, and Treehouse started sending me out doing concerts, and I'd go out to Calgary and
Hmm.
do shows in a mall. And there'd be 3 shows a day on Saturday and Sunday. There'd be 600 people at every show.
Wow.
I would sell gazillions of CDs. They all knew. The concert was half an hour, which is
Hmm.
not very long. They knew all the songs, they knew all the words. And I remember the real time I realized this. I had to open for Barney at the Calgary Stampede. Barney was doing uh, these shows at a stage outside of for about 1,000 people.
Right.
Barney's show was only 20 minutes long, and they had to fill a half an hour. So they got me to do 10 minutes at the beginning,
Right.
and then Barney would come on. Well, nobody was there to see me. They were there to see Barney. And I thought, and first of all, there's 1,000 people. They're not even going to know it's me. Like, how are they going to know it's me? Because Barney is huge. I'm a
Yeah.
little. So I went at the Calgary Stampede. They were selling these big foam cowboy hats. And I thought, I'm going to get one of those big foam cowboy hats because then at least they'll be able to see me
Right.
moving around. And I came out, and the crowd was actually hostile because I was not
Really.
like, "Where's Barney?" Like, and they were yelling, "Where's
Yeah.
Barney? Where's Barney?" And as soon as "Ants in Your Pants" came on, they all went, "Oh, Ants in Your Pants!" Everyone knew "Ants in Your Pants," and I was saved. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it through this experience. And I realized that as a result of that, "Ants in Your Pants" was absolutely universally known, and it was on the air for 10 years.
Yeah.
And for 10 years, I went all over Canada and did kids shows and had the time of my life. Um, and "Ants in Your Pants." And I remember thinking, I was doing a show at Ontario Place, and I'm looking out, not a huge crowd, but a crowd of people. They're all singing "Ants in Your Pants." There were actions. They were all doing the actions. And I thought, oh, another hit song. Like, that's a hit song. For if you were under the age of 5. Uh,
But it works. Hey, I mean, it wasn't something you were pursuing, but
no, and
those are the best stories. How it happens like that.
well, and incredibly rewarding to perform for children.
Yeah.
Incredibly rewarding because children, and I realized that if you're performing for children or for adults, it's not really that much different.
No.
But kids will immediately respond. And if you are not any good, they will immediately reject you.
Yeah.
So if what you were doing wasn't getting them, then that you'd have to figure it out pretty quickly.
Right.
And so I learned with kids' music actions so that they could participate. I had a funny hat for every song.
Right.
Every song I did, I had a different hat. I had a big cowboy hat. I had a hat with a propeller on it. I had a tomato hat. I had a turkey hat. I
That's
had
awesome.
I had all kinds of crazy hats.
Well, you wouldn't be the only one that went in that direction either. I remember taking my niece to something up at Mississauga Civic Center in the library once, and there was a children's act performing. And I'm looking at this man and woman, and I'm like, where have I seen these two before? And it was Martha and the Muffins.
Oh yes, yes. Well, and Martha from Martha and the Muffins was one of the people who sang on Ants in Your Pants.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I can't remember the song that she did, but I remember getting in touch with her because I have a funny Martha and the Muffin story. When I was in the CDs, we had a drummer,
Right.
wonderful drummer named Nick Kent, and he had been our drummer, and he was our main guy, and
Yeah.
he was upset with me because I'd gone to play guitar in another band for
Right.
somebody. We had a big band meeting, and he said, "You had to be in the band. You can't play in any other band." 2 weeks later, he joined Martha and the Muffins.
Wow.
And they had a record deal, and they were going places, and he left us in the dust and went to Martha and the Muffins. I don't blame him. I mean,
No.
he had a wonderful career then. But no, they were great. And no, I mean, I didn't really choose to do children's music so much as it kind of accidentally happened.
Right.
But it was a really wonderful thing to do. And I don't do a lot of it anymore. I still have my hats, and
Right.
on occasion I will do something. But I've thought about doing some more children's recording,
Hmm.
um, you know, just because it's fun.
Like, I know you still write songs now, and I see you releasing some videos and recordings of some of the stuff you do now, and I love it. It's great stuff.
Oh, thank
Like,
you.
I always try and send it links to friends of mine to check it out because you still write great songs.
Oh, thank you.
Not just what I've seen you do with Whiskey Jack, but I mean, even if you think about it, Stompin' Tom did a lot of songs that appealed to kids.
Well, now we're getting into Stomp Tom.
But yeah,
Um, well, yes, the thing about Stompin' Tom, and this is the thing that and we may have talked about this.
right.
The thing that I've discovered, I never took Stompin' Tom that seriously when I was younger. Um, he was a kind of novelty kind of guy. He used to come to Penetang. I lived in Midland, and he would come to Penetang, and I never went to see him, and I wish I had now. I'd see him on TV, and I was quite familiar with him. When I started performing his songs in Whiskey Jack, and when I started to look, there's a big fat book of about 100 Stompin' Tom songs. He wrote all kinds of songs.
He did, yeah.
He wrote, and we do a fair amount of them in Whiskey Jack that aren't familiar to people, that are quite beautiful.
Yeah,
And yeah, the one that comes to mind that might be fun for kids is called the Bug Song,
right.
which I've sung before, which is a lot of fun about bugs. So yeah, I've grown to a different appreciation of Stompin' Tom.
So how many songs of his have you had to learn thus far? Quite a few, I'm thinking.
I'll tell you for some reason, when I started singing in Whiskey Jack, I had to sing. I think it's because I took over for Bob McNiven when Bob retired, and Bob used to have to sing all the hard songs, the ones with all the verses. So there's like 8 verses
Right.
in Tilsonburg. There are 8 verses, and in Margot's Cargo, I think there are 8 verses. And
Yeah,
I used to use an iPad when I first
right.
started because I said, "There's no way I can remember all these lyrics."
Right.
But then if you're using an iPad, you're constantly looking at the iPad, and you're not really, performing to the audience. So I've I've learned all the lyrics to all the songs, but it is a challenge, and it's only but the saving grace is that most of the songs have some kind of storyline
Right.
going through them, and so if you sort of remember the story,
Right.
it helps you remember the lyrics. The one Margot's Cargo is particularly tricky,
Right.
and Tilsonburg. Although Tilsonburg, I've also written a song about Tilsonburg,
Okay.
and we now sort of sometimes combine them together.
Right.
Um,
Now, do you ever do any shows on your own still? Like, I know you do the side project with Duncan Fremlin, the Doogie and Dunn
Being
thing.
done. I haven't done so much on my own for a long time, and in
Right.
part it's because I'm not very good at organizing things.
Okay.
Duncan is great at organizing gigs and organizing tours. And
Hmm.
for me, I sort of contribute on the musical end of things,
Right.
you know, making charts for the band, and I also have done a fair amount of making videos
Right.
for Whiskey Jack. But
And
no,
you play a lot of instruments too. Like I was gonna say I've seen you play the accordion as well. So
well, yes, don't broadcast that to too many people because not many people enjoy the accordion.
what do you
Um,
mean? Weird Al made a career out of it.
yeah, that's true. Well, no, what happened is, I mean, I always have played a lot of instruments, but when COVID came around, I was for about 2 years. We came to live up here where I am now,
Right.
near north of Parry Sound in our cottage. We were here when COVID hit, and we ended up just staying. And I I was learning to play upright bass, uh,
Okay.
and I didn't have anyone to play with. So
Right.
I thought, well, I'm going to make a bunch of recordings, and
Hmm.
it'll give me a chance to play the bass. And I'd started to make videos, just for fun more than anything. So I started videoing all my recording, and yeah, I now have 500, and I think I have 502 subscribers on YouTube.
Well, I'll do my best to make sure you get more.
Well, I'd like to get 1,000, because
Yeah.
if you get 1,000 subscribers, you get some money
Oh, that's good.
from the YouTube people.
I'll do my best to help you with that then.
Well, I mean, I do it a lot, and I do a lot of cover tunes, but I also
Hmm.
do tunes that I've written myself. And I've tried in the last little while. I don't write as many songs as I used to, but I've tried
Right.
to keep it up, and I've tried to. Um, yeah, I think when I worked in television, I kind of got in the habit of writing on demand.
Okay.
Someone would come in and said, "We need 25 songs for this series." And okay, okay, here I go. Um, when nobody's asking me to write something, I then have to come up with the ideas myself.
Right.
And I get good ideas once in a while. I always figure if I get a reasonably good idea, I can maybe write a song, but don't always get those ideas.
So who is I'd like to know some of your influences over the years for writing or music period. Like who do you like to emulate when you play or write or sing or
Well, I would say largely when I was a teenager, I was trying to be like Crosby, Stills and Nash,
Okay.
Joni Mitchell, Bruce Cockburn, Jackson Brown.
Okay.
These were the songwriters, and that was the kind of music that I was sort of absorbing as a teenager.
Hmm.
As time has gone on, I think the music that I heard as a child, standards, Frank Sinatra, um,
Hmm.
Nat King Cole, Johnny Mathis, and a lot of country music. My father listened to Hank Williams, Buck Owens.
Sure.
We had a ton of country music and that is the music that I am now mostly sort of when I sit down to write a song, it usually is in some kind of country kind of feel.
Right.
Um, and when I perform, obviously with Whiskey Jack, that's the kind of stuff. I had a band in Toronto um, through the 90s and into the 2000s called the Louisiana Snowblowers.
Okay.
And we played a lot of slightly jazzy country stuff. And there's been talk of the Snowblowers being revived,
Oh, great.
which would be a lot of fun. There were some great musicians in that band.
Is this what's giving you some of the ideas? Like I know I've seen the way you guys rework some of the Tom songs. Like you've done some really interesting interpretations of some of his music. Like would that have been what kind of made you kind of figure out different ways to play it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, the thing that happened to me with Stompin' Tom was that if you just try to play it the way he did, um, I
Yeah.
don't I mean, I couldn't do that anyway because
I
I'm
don't
a
think many can. Like
no. I
no
mean,
one
you can
could play his music the way he did.
no. He was a very specific and unique kind of performer.
Right.
Um, but when I started looking at the songs and learning the songs, basically I had to learn the songs to sing them. I realized, wow, like this is a great song. So, for
Yeah.
instance, we do Tilsonburg uh, a little more like a country blues kind of tune,
Hmm.
a little more bluesy, a little more thing. And there's a really great version of Sudbury Saturday Night by a jazz group from Edmonton,
Right.
and I forget the name of the group. It was recorded a number of years ago, and so I stole a bit of that feel for Sudbury
Okay.
Saturday Night, and then we break out of that into the into the more familiar feel.
I
But
heard Kim
I
Mitchell do that song once.
that would be something.
Yeah, it's all over the internet. You should look it up. Kim
Oh,
Mitchell. I remember seeing him play it live once. He played Sudbury Saturday Night in concert once. I was like,
oh, I
wow.
looked it up. Well,
Yeah.
the other thing for me is that I sort of feel like you should be able to play a song in 15 different ways.
Yeah.
Um, if it's a good song, you should be able to play it as a reggae song, as a
Right.
country song, as a jazz song, and um, I mean I know there are some people who will say, "Oh no, you can't play that. You have to play it a certain way." Well, that's fine, but
Yeah.
for me, it's a much more interesting prospect to say, "Well, how could we do this? Could we do it slower?" I always like to play things slower.
Right.
I get into trouble because people I play with say it's too slow, but I kind of like playing slow. But no, I think it's, and I figure if it's enjoyable for the musician, there's a good chance it'll be enjoyable for the audience.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean,
You
I
know, it
don't.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, have you connected with a lot of Canadian musicians in the 80s and 90s over the years? That.
Oh yeah, no, that was really one of the great things about being having a song on the radio and getting a little bit of notoriety. I met all kinds of wonderful musicians. I played with a lot of
Hmm.
great musicians and met people. I met Bruce Cockburn. I met Murray
Right.
McLaughlin. I remember the first time I was at the Junos, which was in 1986.
Hmm.
I remember sitting there and thinking, "There's Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
There's Gordon Lightfoot. There's Murray McLaughlin. There's oh my God!" Like, I remember sitting there thinking, "Oh, there's all these people. These amazing artists."
Hmm.
Um, and now, I think for me, the greatest part of that was that I got to be in recording studios with some really great musicians,
Hmm.
um, Canadian musicians who worked in the studio. Dave and Rob Pilch,
Hmm.
Michael Francis, Pepe Francis, Tom Sesniak, um, Guido Basso. I mean,
Hmm.
I had a chance to record with some amazing musicians. Some of them who are not with us anymore, but
Right.
uh, some who are still performing and playing and doing amazing things.
I know you worked with Danny Greenspoon, who worked with my favorite band, Spirit of the West.
Ah, yes. Well, Danny is both a great friend and a collaborator. Um, and Danny and I play in a band called Three Chord Johnny.
Okay.
Three Chord Johnny for 20 years has met every Wednesday. Some of the people in the band are not musicians.
Okay.
They're from the publishing world,
Okay.
and there's as much hanging around having fun as there is playing music.
Right.
But Danny and I know each other quite well. And Danny is, of course, yes, worked with Spirit of the West. He worked for many years with Murray McLaughlin.
Okay.
He still is producing people and recording people. And
Oh, he's a talent, right? He knows
oh,
the
he's the
business.
wonderful. He's won several Junos,
Yeah.
and yeah, great musician, great producer. I learned a lot of recording stuff from Danny, especially mixing.
Like, do you
Danny,
have facilities at home to do recording? Like,
I have
or
a yeah, I have a pretty simple little recording setup, both in the city and up here. Just I have a couple of good mics, and I use my computer,
right?
and I sort of like recording wherever I am.
Because I guess
And
that's where the technology's really come along, where you can do a lot of your own stuff if you really want to.
it's crazy. You used to have to go to a huge studio at hundreds of dollars an hour with four or
Yeah.
five musicians, and
Yeah.
now it's me in a room with a computer.
Well, even when you go back to, Stompin' Tom was doing that in his younger days before anybody did it. He was
Yeah.
making his own records and selling them out of the trunk of his car, and he really was kind of like started a lot of things that we all do today and don't even really think about it
Yeah.
too much, right? So
Well, and he was so fiercely Canadian and so fiercely proud of that.
yeah,
It reminds me to some degree of the Bruce Cockburn kind of thing, where
right,
Bruce and Bernie Finkelstein kind of created this industry in a way.
yeah,
Started small, and they were very tenacious. And Tom was when I hear stories from Duncan Fremlin, my friend Duncan, who played with Tom and toured with Tom. Yeah, I mean, there was more to Stompin' Tom than just the sort of figure that you saw when he performed. He had his
mm-hmm,
own record label, he had
yeah,
his own publishing company. He did a lot of things. Leona Boyd got her first record deal
right.
on Stompin' Tom's record. So,
I mean, that's why I'm doing this group, and because I really like the Canadian stuff that came out in the 80s and 90s, because I always found I found Canadians had more of a different voice than what was coming out of America.
hmm,
I always felt they had more distinctive sounds. Like, you know who Gordon Lightfoot is the second he opens his mouth. You know who Gord
yeah,
Downey from the Tragically Hip is the second he opens his mouth. Same with, I can name so many Canadian artists. You know who they are the second they start singing. They don't sound like anything else I've ever heard.
yeah. No, I agree with you. As a kid growing up, I wanted to be like Bruce Cockburn.
Right,
I listened to Gordon Lightfoot all the time. My father had grown up in Aurelia. He was a little
right,
bit older than Gordon. He knew Gordon Lightfoot as a
right.
kid, and I think for me one of the most important Canadian artists certainly in the '70s and into the '80s was Willie P. Bennett.
Right.
And although Willie didn't sort of reach the level of success and stardom that some of the others, as a songwriter and as a performer, he was amazing and
Yeah.
such an inspiration. I remember somebody saying, and I think you could say this about almost all of the people you've mentioned, that when we first heard them,
Hmm.
we thought we were hearing music that was about ourselves.
Yeah.
This was music that related to us.
Right.
When Gordon Lightfoot sings about his sailboat Silver Heels
Right.
on in the lee of Christian Island. Well,
Yeah.
I know where Christian Island is.
Yeah.
I've been to Christian Island. When Bruce Cockburn, sings his songs about the coldest night of the year in Toronto, well, that's the world that I know. And
You've been there. You've done that.
yeah, and Stompin' Tom. I mean, when we play outside of the urban centers, like outside of Toronto, well, we're playing songs about the places where people live. Like
Yeah.
when you go to Sudbury and play Sudbury Saturday Night, you're playing Sudbury Saturday Night in Sudbury, and the people appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. As you know, I live here in PEI now, and it's hard to go anywhere on this island and not think about the man,
Yeah,
especially when you
well,
see the red dirt everywhere and the potato farms. And
yeah. Well, and when we were there last fall, I guess it was just before the hurricane.
you got
Um,
out just in time too, didn't
yeah,
you?
we left the morning of the hurricane. Um, but no, I mean, I think for me, we had a great time that tour.
Yeah.
We were quite a bit in Nova Scotia, but playing in PEI at the Copper Bottom um, pub, the brewery there, was so much fun.
Yeah.
Um, and seeing you guys and our bass player, who was from Dartmouth, was originally from PEI,
Yeah.
Rayon, I think his name is, and he was wonderful, and his parents were there, and Billy McGuinness, our fiddle player, who is also from PEI.
Yeah.
It was like old home week. It was
We actually went to see your bass player playing his Grateful Dead cover band here in Charlottetown. They're in a band called Wharf Rats, and he's one of the two drummers.
he plays drums.
He does.
I
You
didn't
know
know
how
he
the
played
Grateful
drums.
Dead used to have two drummers? They had
Yeah,
two drummers in their Grateful Dead tribute band. They're called Wharf Rats. It was unbelievable.
oh,
Packed into the trail side, the place you guys are. I think you guys are
ah
coming in.
well, he's a great bass player. I can't remember his last name at the moment. Rayon.
Yeah, his
Yeah,
parents were at that Wharf Rat show too. We talked to his dad again, and he
yeah.
remembered us from it from the Copper Bottom. It was kind of a little reunion there from that night. It was It was quite incredible. He's a great musician, that kid, isn't he? Like,
Oh, amazing. You know, we did that tour without a drummer.
right,
That's the first time we'd done that, and in part it was just too expensive to bring another person along.
right.
And when we started playing with Ray, oh boy, it was like we don't need a drummer. This guy's great,
And
and
he
he
can
knew.
play any kind of music too. Like
Yeah.
go from a Grateful Dead cover band to playing.
Oh, I'll
what a
have to,
cross section of music.
yeah, I'll have to look for that. I'll look for the work that.
Yeah, it was incredible. He played, yeah, the two drummers on stage. It was unbelievable. Like it
Well,
was like a Grateful Dead show.
yeah. The other thing about PEI and Down East, and I realized this, that well, we've been there a couple of times now.
Hmm.
There's quite a music scene down
There
east,
really is. Yeah.
and there are lots of places to play. There are lots of people who are playing. You really get the feeling that you're in a really vibrant, lively kind of scene. And I'm looking forward to it again. I think we're coming in April.
Yes. Yes. I
And
can't wait to see you guys again. I
yeah,
always.
I hope we can just keep going. It's only about an 18-hour drive.
That's all. And the $50 to leave the island to
Oh
go
yeah,
over the bridge. Yeah.
it's like a really good deal. You're going there, and you think, even if you go on the ferry, you think, oh, I don't have to pay, and then when you try to leave, it's like you got to pay. It's like
Yeah.
it's like Rogers selling you the phone. You don't real they think you think you're getting a free phone, and then you find out about a
It's
week later that no, this is not a free phone.
when you get your first bill. Yeah. Oh, it's great chatting with you, Douglas. I've really enjoyed
Alan,
getting to know you over the past few years and following you guys around whenever you're
oh,
near where I am.
well, I greatly appreciate talking to you and seeing you, and I'm looking forward. We'll see you when we're down again, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm actually, you told me to look up Blair Packham, and I think he's interested in doing an interview with me, so I'm looking forward to
Oh,
that.
oh, absolutely. Blair is wonderful, and
Yeah, he watches
he,
all the stuff I do in my group, and it's kind of nice. I'm starting to get some good interviews. I don't know if you saw, I interviewed Gord from the Spoons,
I think I did see that, and I'm going to go back and look again. Yeah.
and
Well,
Alfie Zappacosta was here,
yeah.
and
It's
we did an in-person interview.
oh, nice.
It was great.
Well, it was an interesting era. There
Yeah,
was a lot going on. There were you should also talk to Kurt Swinghammer. I don't know if you know
I know
Kurt.
the name. I know the name. Yeah,
Kurt's a great. He's still doing music and doing art, and
yeah.
he'd be a wonderful guy to talk to. Blair, Kurt. I don't.
Well, the one guy I've been interviewing too is David Macmillan. He's a friend of mine from Oakville. He um he worked for EMI under Dean
Oh,
Cameron, promoting Stompin' Tom when he signed with them. But he's also worked with everybody from the '90s, from the Tea Party to Chalk Circle to
wow.
like he's been every. He was at Attic Records when Wasn't That a Party came out for the Irish Rovers, and he's an encyclopedia of music. Like
Well, that's amazing.
yeah, he's a really great guy. I he comes on a regular basis to chat with me, and I think he wants to
Cool.
keep doing it. So he has a great outlook on music in Canada for sure.
Well, cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't thank you enough for doing this, Douglas. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. I look
Totally.
forward to seeing you in April.
I can't wait.
All right. Take care,
Oh, and
Douglas.
in the
Oh
meantime,
yeah,
go look at my YouTube channel,
for sure.
Douglas
Yeah.
Douglas John Cameron, and subscribe because I want to get 503 subscribers.
Yes. Yes. We got to work on that. Anything else you'd like to plug though, other than some shows coming up or?
Well, there's going to be a Doogie and Dunn album coming out in the
Oh,
new year.
great. Great.
It's a sort of an EP, and it's going to be available on Spotify and Apple Music. I'm going to start putting up a lot of my older stuff up
Okay.
on Spotify and Apple Music. Douglas John Cameron,
Okay.
and yeah, just it'll be there. It'll be accessible, and people can check it out,
Great.
and it'll be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to see some stuff. Oh, one quick question. It's a Tom related question. Are you guys still doing some of those songs Tom wrote with the guy that discovered him up in Timmins? I forgot. Gate Lapine?
Yes, Dave Lapine. We are doing at the present time. We do one of those songs,
Okay.
the song that Tom and Gate wrote, that Duncan and I finished, And there are a couple more in the works.
Okay.
Duncan sort of has all that material, and we work on it from time to time. But
Okay.
yes, we are, and
Good.
we I don't we haven't recorded any of that yet, but I think we might be doing that soon.
I'm really curious to hear what you guys do with it.
Yeah. Well, the one song is called Snarley's Hill.
Okay.
Snarley's. It's kind of a bluegrassy kind of tune.
Okay.
Um, so we'll
Well,
point
it's
that.
nice to see something being done with it.
Oh yeah, no, there's quite a treasure trove of stuff that Gates and Tom wrote.
I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, can't thank you enough, Doug. Good to talk to you.
My pleasure.
Good luck with the renos.
Thank you. And I notice, Alan, that we go to the same barber.
Yes, yes. You made mention of that when I saw you in Montague, and you made me hold up the cue cards. You told me to take my hat off, and when I did, you were like kind of shocked to see
you were one of the best cue card holders we had.
Hey, that's a lot to live up to.
I was going to say, yes, we go to the same barber, but you appear to be more advanced in the treatments.
Maybe. Hey, if you need another cue card holder when you're back in PEI, I'm your man.
You're the man.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Douglas. Good to chat with you. Take care.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.